Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of I'll Call You Right Back podcast with me, your host. My name is Chad Medved. This is my show. We're back after a little hiatus. Took a little vacation. Me and my friends rode our bikes from the point in Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C. It was a wild time. I took the week off because, I was just out in the woods. I was out in the woods pedaling, felt like a damn kid again. Nothing to worry about but how many miles to go that day. Something romantic about that, something very beautiful about that. But yeah, I took a week off. What of it? But we're back with another banger, But before we get to the banger, I got some things that I got to talk about. So first thing is first. The podcast is something that I hold dear to my heart, obviously. Pittsburgh City Paper just put out the nominations for the Best of in the City awards, I guess. In my opinion, I think these awards are bullshit. But if you're obliged to go put my name in on the nominations for Best Podcast, it is under the People and Places category. You could find Best Podcast and you could write in I'll Call You Right Back podcast. And that's much appreciated. You don't got to do it, but if you got a second for me, I appreciate it. If you don't do that, if you don't write my name in for Best of, please take a second to rate and review and subscribe to the podcast. If you have not, you probably have because you guys are all awesome, but rate and review and subscribe. It's a big help for me. And if you guys really love me, if you guys are real into the podcast and you really enjoy what I do, I have a Patreon. Okay. This Patreon is a little thing that I set up to collect a couple coins for the work that I do with I'll Call You Right Back. This shit takes me quite a bit of time. If you enjoy what I do each week, it's free to listen to the episodes. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but if you enjoy it and you'd like to throw a couple shekels my way, you could sign up for my Patreon. The way a Patreon works is you subscribe, and each month, $5 will be taken out of your account and put into my account with a little Uncle Sam tax off of that. But that's just a way for you to support the show if you feel it necessary. But a free way, just share it. That's all I ask you guys. That's really all I'm asking of you is if you enjoy it, just share it wherever you got. Any social media, share the podcast, tell your friends about it, tell your Nana about it, and just spread the word. That's a big help for me. We got good people each week. I want to spread the word with how great all these people are. And, to get right on to it, this week we're back with episode 245, and I sit down with Rockacy of Churchview Farms. If you're not familiar with Churchview Farms, it is a little farmette that is out in the South Hills. And what they specialize in is, Tara is the farmer there. She grows a bunch of different vegetables, a bunch of different stuff, gives a home to a lot of good, cute farm animals, couple of cute dogs. But with all the stuff that she grows, they do a lot of cool events up there. Her manager, Naomi, and her head chef, Csilla, they put together these crazy events, which are, farm dinners with wine pairings and, the whole nine. There's all kinds of stuff you could find on churchviewfarms.com, and you will see what they do. It's hard to kind of explain the elevated type of event that they do, but everything on the farm is being used in these meals, and it's all coordinated between Tara and Chef Csilla. I'm definitely going to try to get Chef Csilla on if she is interested, because she sounds just as interesting. But they are doing some wild stuff up there. They have a couple of programs where people can come and volunteer up there and kind of like learn how to farm. They got a couple of work share volunteer programs that already get filled up, where people go and they work on the farm, and in turn they get vegetables back from it. And it's just such a cool operation that they have up there, where you could go to learn. It's just a place that's it's cultivating this homesteading interest. If you wanted to, if you're interested in volunteering, go to churchviewfarms.com. You could find some information on there, or slide in their Instagram, Churchview Farms PGH, and you could learn more about it. Or you can just listen to this episode with Tara, because it's a really good one. We're talking about how she changed careers completely to become a farmer, the type of values that she has as a farmer, and the whole rundown on what goes on at Churchview Farms. you could find dinner dates, you could find event dates rather on their website right now, churchviewfarms.com. And they are, they sell out pretty quick. I know one of them is already sold out, but if you want to get tickets to one of these events, hop on their website, check out what they got, and, listen for more right now. So without further ado, episode 245 of I'll Call You Right Back podcast with Tara Rockacy of Churchview Farms.
I gotta use the telephone.
Hello?
Telephone.
I'll call you right back. Call you right back.
Telephone.
I'll Call You Right Back podcast.
Yeah,
I mean, it seems to be going pretty well.
it is. It is.
Yeah, you're not like used to kind of talking about your farm?
Well, yeah, I'm used to talking about it, but I think because I still sometimes am, frankly, surprised at how well it's working and how people are responding to it, that it's hard for me to believe sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So it's therefore hard for me to believe that other people, even on some level, want to be a part of it.
Yeah, what you're involved with.
Yeah, and something that started because of a hobby, something that I just...
How old is Churchview?
So I moved to the land in 2007. I started farming in 2009.
Okay.
And we started the events in 2013.
Oh, that long ago? 10 years.
Yeah. Oh, wait, 2012. This is our 11th.
Okay, yeah, 11 years. That's wild. I didn't know it was that long. My wife is in the wedding industry and sees like all these events and pointed me out to what you're doing, and it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I do think one of the things that makes it fascinating and inspiring is how completely accidental the whole thing was. I would like to say that everything that's happening at Churchview right now was this very well thought out
Master plan.
I had a recipe for success the entire time.
Don't you think it's more romantic whenever it just kind of accidentally falls into play?
Yeah, sure it is. And I think that's also one of the reasons that people respond to it, whether those people are the people coming for the education, the work share and the volunteer, or the people who are coming to the events. I think I hear a lot of people talk about Churchview has this magic, and I think that that's part of the magic.
Yeah.
Right, is that it is...
kind of like this ever-growing creative thing.
Right. That started by accident.
Are you from here?
I am. So where the farm is, I grew up next door. It was my grandparents' farm.
Oh, okay.
So I spent a lot of time there as a child.
Yeah.
With my family. We did Christmases there. We did, one of my uncles always dressed up as Santa, and me and my 26 cousins loaded into that tiny farmhouse where my dad was the oldest of 10.
Wow.
Who grew up there. And I moved away. I worked for the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh for 13 years. When I left, I started in the processing department in the late 90s. When I left, I was curating the film and audiobook collections for the branch libraries. And I moved to the farm because I had started to become really passionate about growing food, specifically organic food, specifically heirloom tomatoes. I lived in Squirrel Hill in a couple different apartments. I had container gardens on the roof. The latest one on Monitor Street, before I moved to the farm, my landlord let me dig up the front yard and put in a vegetable garden. So when nobody else in the family wanted the farm, and it was most likely going to go to developers, I remember saying to my parents, I was looking for a house anyway, and I thought, well, what a great place to explore this hobby and keep this land in the family and preserve this kind of history there. And also, it is just genuinely a beautiful space.
Yeah.
I will say I have put a ton into that farm.
I bet you did.
It is a lot more beautiful now than it was when I moved there. But it's still the space itself. It's surrounded in three sides by
how big?
By wooded areas. It's only 5 acres.
Yeah. Like
it's pretty small.
Yeah, it's manageable.
And my property, I'm in North Baldwin, but I share a property line with City of Pittsburgh.
Oh wow.
We're 12 minutes from the waterfront and the South Side Works.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. After I looked on the maps, I was like, where could this even be? I haven't been able to be up there yet.
Right.
But it looks, like you said, magical.
Right. Well, there's so many guests that come there that are driving through these kind of, suburban areas and subdivisions. And I think some of them are convinced that, there's a joke being played on them and there's not actually a farm there. Because you could never know from the street. You can't even see us from the street. We have a really long gravel driveway and we're kind of close to a dead end.
So when you were growing up as a kid, like were you growing things? Were you, in the fields growing things?
I was not.
No?
Well, I mean, when I was very young, there are some pictures that I actually have in the guest bathroom at the farm of my grandfather and I planting potatoes and, my mom and I shucking corn in the front yard of the farm.
Was that like their job as the farm, or was that just something that they had?
My grandfather was a homesteader.
Okay.
My grandparents were homesteaders. My grandfather actually drove a truck for Gulf Oil.
Oh.
He grew food and raised animals. They had cows, pigs, horses, goats, chickens there that I remember when I was little.
Always been 5 acres?
No, it was originally 13.
Okay, yeah.
So the house that I grew up where my parents still live was part of it. And then the house next door, which originally
still live there.
My parents do, not my aunt and uncle do.
Yeah, still live there though. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah, they do.
Wow.
They do, and they're a big part of the farm.
I'm sure. I mean, if it's in your family for that long, you have to be almost,
Right, absolutely. And
it's in your bloodline.
There are ups and downs to having your parents so close, but there's a field that separates us, and I feel like we're pretty good with boundaries. And I could not do that without their help. I mean, my dad helps maintain the property, and of course I have paid employees now, salaried employees, but my dad still does so much, and my mom arranges all the flowers for every event.
That guy's got something different besides for a paid employee. He got life in it.
Exactly. Yes.
That's passion in there.
Yeah. They're both.
That's cool though. I mean, like as a kid, what are you into? Like what kind of stuff did you gravitate towards?
Well, in my teenage years, nothing good.
Yeah, nothing good. Well, that's usually how it goes, right?
Yeah, it is.
Were you like a music person? Were you like running around like that?
I mean, it was the 90s.
Yeah.
I went to a lot of raves.
Yeah. It's understandable.
Right. I was into music. I have always had a lot of very close friendships. My friends have always been a really huge part of my life. A lot of those friendships I still have.
That's
a lot
great.
of those friendships are part of what encouraged me to start the farm. I mean, my good friend Jen was the first one who brought up the idea of making it a working farm. My good friend Ellen did our original logo. So my friends have been a huge part of this process also. But yeah, when I was younger, I think I, like many young people, I was searching for something that I just wasn't finding. And the closest that I found to something that really fulfilled me was being part of the library.
Really? You were a big reader growing up?
I was a very big reader growing up. And that was, a lot to do, of course, with my my parents and their influence. But, I had always loved the library. I had a lot of really great memories as a child being at the library. And I know my parents were thrilled when I, went into librarianship and thought that was going to be my career path.
That was like your idea after high school, like go to school. I mean, like follow that career path to be involved in the library.
I went to college. My degree is actually in narrative nonfiction writing and a minor in cultural anthropology. So nothing to do with anything that I do. Although I will argue very firmly that a degree in writing can help you no matter what.
Yeah, no matter what you do.
Especially when you own a business, and certainly when you are going into librarianship or being part of a library system. But I started working at the library, I think as what I thought was a bridge job, right? Where I was going to, it was a stop on my way to something else, but I didn't know where I was going yet.
Yeah.
And like I said, it was in the processing department. I was literally processing the books for the library. And actually, a really lovely woman named Rosemary, who was the first person, I believe, that hired me at the Carnegie, still comes to farm dinners.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes, she still comes. She is in her 90s.
Oh, my goodness.
I think she'll actually be there in a couple weeks. She
Wow.
comes a couple times a year. Yeah, she's incredibly sweet. But anyway, so I started there, and then I think I just became passionate about the library, and it felt, like I said, it felt comfortable, it felt challenging, it felt fulfilling.
Like a good place to grow and climb your way up, and, just a good place to be around, I'm sure.
Right. And it also felt safe and like it was what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Which I think ultimately is probably why I ended up looking for something else, because it just wasn't driving me hard enough.
Yeah, you get complacent there, comfortable.
Yeah, and I think that maybe more so then when I was still on this search, I needed something to challenge me.
Yeah.
Because I was still looking for something out there and didn't realize it.
How long were you at the library?
13 years.
13 years there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, to make a jump it's a commitment.
It's a huge commitment, and it was very scary. And
Was there anything else besides farming that kind of was piquing your interest?
No, and I don't even know if I fully understood how much farming was piquing my interest.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I was incredibly driven to do it.
Yeah.
And when I started doing it, I realized, oh no, this is the thing. It's like when you find that thing that it's like,
sparks,
this is what I'm supposed to do.
it sparks something inside of you. So are you someone that, you said you started growing things as a hobbyist grower and just for your own, for your own home to have, mm-hmm. and you just enjoyed that. And that's kind of what
I just enjoyed that. I've always loved cooking.
Yeah.
My mom is a great cook. My ex-partner is a chef. Food has always played a large role in my life. And I think that was part of loving to grow food. But I think that even with that too, there's this challenge to it, right? And with a growing season, there's also, in many ways, not always, there's this clean slate where you can just start over
mm-hmm.
the next season. And I think those are both things that I really responded to it. Again, whether I realized that at the time or not, but it was definitely a road that I really wanted to explore and I wanted to go down. But then on the other, I was at this fork, right? And on the one side was this career. I had this trajectory. I had health benefits. I had a salary. I had, retirement contributions. But I kept feeling the pull of the farm. And when I actually started my first year of doing CSA at
mm-hmm.
Churchview, I had no idea what I was doing. I was a self-taught grower, and because I had grown my own food, I had never even subscribed to a CSA.
Yeah. So wait, before we go off on this whole road, I'm curious now. What were you growing before you got to the farm? Like as just what you were growing for yourself?
As a home gardener?
Yeah.
A lot of it reflects what I grow now. A lot of heirloom tomatoes, as many varieties of heirloom tomatoes as I could jam into that little garden. Heirloom peppers. I was really into the heirloom varieties also because of the history.
What does that mean? What is heirloom?
So an heirloom, there's a little bit of debate about how many years, but it's not hybridized, so it's not made in a lab, and it's been around for at least 50 years.
Okay.
Is the standard definition. And because heirlooms things aren't bred out of them. They're not bred to, be resistant to being bruised when they're, taken on a truck from, California to
they're
the
just
East Coast. The most important thing about them is flavor. They're not always the most productive. They're definitely not always the most disease resistant. They're not the most easy to grow, but they have such rich histories, a lot of them. And in my opinion, you can't get anything more flavorful and more
than an heirloom tomato.
than an heirloom tomato. And we grew a couple hundred varieties of heirloom tomatoes. And heirloom peppers are fast catching up with my heirloom tomato passion. I think we have over 100.
My goodness.
Peppers this year. But when I was a backyard gardener, it was standard things. It was tomatoes, it was peppers, it was herbs, and salad greens.
Were you good at first? Like I'm a very, very base level home gardener. My mother-in-law bought me a flower box, and before that I had nothing. Back in the day, my dad would grow some kohlrabi, some tomatoes, and it would always kind of be half-assed.
Right.
And if they would come in, they would come in. But I'm 32. I feel like I did not care about anything in the beginning. When you're in your early 20s, mid 20s, you're like, just give me a tomato, like whatever.
Right.
But now I'm like, I grow my own peppers. I make my own hot sauce. I boil the bottles. I do all that. And I have such joy that comes from knowing that like I did it, and like I know where this came from. I grew these from from nothing, and it's cool to be able to just feel that, and like rather than going into a grocery store and seeing like where the hell these came from.
Right. I mean, I do think for a lot of reasons, people in general want to be more in touch with their food system. But
do you think that that's something that's kind of new now? Because I feel like it's kind of newer. In the past, maybe 8 years, people wanted to start moving towards that like homesteadish kind of. I'm going to get chickens. I'm going to do all that.
I feel like there's definitely a swing back.
Yeah.
To wanting to produce more of your own food, or at least know where your food is coming from. A lot more people are. Going to farmers markets and participating in community-supported agriculture from a variety of farms. I think it started, I would definitely say it started before that.
Yeah.
But in the last couple decades, I think is where we really saw that swing back.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost like a trendy thing now, like a TikTok-y thing.
It is trendy, which frankly doesn't hurt my business.
Yeah, it's not bad. So, yeah. It's not bad. I thrive from it. That's how I learned how to make, sauce and everything. And it's kind of almost like, it's not one of them things to gatekeep, like what is the benefit of it? It's, you want to spread these, like this knowledge to people to enjoy it with everyone.
Right. And I think that there is a really different connection when you grow your own food, or at least when you're more aware of the source. I have one of my best friends teases me about the time that I put into making a meal, even if it's just for myself.
Yeah.
But I love the process. I love the process of cooking. I love the process of creating a meal that's delicious with beautiful, fresh ingredients. And I also love that process of growing the food right from start to finish.
Yeah.
And it's starting with this seed that is in my greenhouse, in late February.
Yeah.
And then we're eating these delicious varieties of peppers and in late July.
And you did
August.
it.
Yeah.
It's awesome to think about.
And I think the fact that so many other people are part of it too.
Yeah.
Just adds another level of just gratifying and satisfying on top of it.
Yeah, like everyone worked hard for this crop.
Right. And
it's cool.
We did this as kind of a collective.
Now, whenever you go to make that swing from being a backyard grower to, getting this farm and creating a working farm, so to speak, like, how does that process kind of get into your mind, and how do you approach that?
I approached it very clumsily with almost no plan because that's how I approach a lot of things. I was in my very early 30s. Maybe I wasn't quite 30 yet. I can't honestly remember. And I think that at that time I was a lot more apt to want to take chances and risks, even though I recognized how scary it was. But I think the moment when I decided I was at full-time at the farm, I was also still full-time at the library.
Yeah.
So that was just exhausting on many levels. My friends would kind of joke that if you wanted to see Tara, you were going to show up to the farm and volunteer. I have some very patient friends. And very supportive friends. And I think, so I made the decision to step back and go part-time at the library. But I remember when I went in to tell my boss at the time, they had offered me it was a state-funded grant program, I think, because I was thinking about pursuing my degree in library science, my master's degree, and it would have, they offered me the scholarship. It would have paid for all of my grad school and guaranteed me a full-time position at the library as a branch manager or department leader upon graduation, which was a very big deal because, the library school in Pittsburgh at least was one of the top rated in the country, and so it's very competitive.
So you were faced with a difficult decision.
And I think if not for that, I actually probably might have lingered there a little bit longer. But what I realized was that I loved the library, but I loved the farm more. And it was something I needed to do. And especially when it came down to that scholarship, I knew that somebody else deserved it more than I did.
Yeah.
And somebody else who was passionate about libraries in the way that I was passionate about this farm and wanted to try that, that's the person who should get that scholarship and that job guarantee, because it almost felt like it would be unfair for me to take it. And that's when I was like, all right, well, we're taking this leap now.
Yeah, that's pretty beautiful to be able to like kind of think about that, to realize that.
It is. And at the time, I think I was so scared that I don't even know what I recognized. It's hard to articulate because I just felt like I needed to do it and I needed to give it a chance.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like it feels like a life-changing moment where it's like you could either walk down that path and that's your world, or you could walk down that other path and it's your other world. And it's what world did you prefer? And it's obviously that.
Yeah. And it was the one that was very scary and very uncertain and it's not as though I even had a background in farming or I had barely had gardens for, a handful of years.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So like you turned down this opportunity that sounds like a pretty great opportunity. What is happening at the farm at this time? Like, are you growing things and selling things at this time?
At that time, so something that I tell a lot of farm tours, people that come to the farm, guests before dinner, I just started growing all this food. I wasn't selling it when I moved there in 2007. Just started growing food, started cleaning up the farm and growing, and I grew a lot of food.
Yeah,
and I could not use or preserve all of it.
You did it went pretty well.
It was
growing?
going well. Yeah, but everything grows. I mean, not everything. It's a lot easier to do it on a small scale.
Yeah,
it was still pretty small scale, but I still had too much to use, so I would just give it away to my friends. And my good friend Jen was having a party one night and asked me to bring basil. And I brought, I think, at least one, possibly two trash bags full of basil. And she said, you could start selling this stuff. You could start a CSA program.
Yeah.
You're growing it anyway. Instead of giving it away, why don't you do that? So in 2009, I started a CSA for community supported agriculture program for 17 families out of, at the time, I just had 14 raised beds at the farm. And I look back on it and think it went horribly, but it couldn't have gone that bad. I mean, some of those people still come to the farm, are still part of the farm. But it was such a learning process for me. And, in my personal life, it was just, a tumultuous, stressful time.
Yeah, it's something new. You're balancing things, you got to deal with these things. And then you got a personal life that you're dealing with as well.
Right. Looking back, I almost don't know how I did it logistically.
Yeah.
Even just because I was full-time with the library.
Yeah.
Also. And then I think in 2010, I went part-time at the library to focus more energy on the farm. That's when I was partnered with a chef, Kate Romaine of Black Radish Kitchen.
Okay.
And, being partnered with a chef, of course, your world is other chefs too.
What do you mean being partnered with a chef?
Partnered.
Partnered. Yes. Yeah. I thought you meant like you had a
no business partner.
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah. Okay.
No, not a business partner, a relationship partner. I'm sorry, I should have clarified that. Anyway, so Kate lived with me at the farm, and I remember Kate and my farmer mentor, who was Barb Klein of formerly Mildred Sauter's farm in Stanton Heights. Barb said to me, "The way that you grow food, the way that it's so incredibly hands-on, the way you treat the soil, you are not going to make money growing food for CSA or for market.
Because you take too much pride in it and too much care of it."
Well, I think it's also the logistics, right? Churchview as a production farm is in a very interesting spot because we're so small that I can get away with, as I call it, micromanaging the soil in a lot of ways, but we're not large enough to do things to really produce efficiently.
Yeah.
At least the way I do it. But again, I also had a steeper learning curve because I was self-taught, right? So she said, you should diversify. And Kate said, well, we have all these friends that are chefs. I'm a chef. Why don't we start doing a couple of farm dinners here? Farm dinners were just kind of, I think, starting to get a little bit trendy at that point, at least here. And that's how it started. And people really responded to it. And so then I just started growing it. And then I realized as the events portion of the farm was really catching on, I realized that growing food for a paying CSA and growing food for market, I wasn't equipped to do that.
Yeah.
Or I didn't feel equipped at the time to do that. And I realized that wasn't what I was really passionate about. I loved engaging with people. I loved teaching people. I loved sharing experiences. And that's how the Workshare CSA model started. It's one that Barb had at her farm, where instead of paying money for this food, people would come once a week. They wanted to, for a variety of reasons, they wanted to be part of this farm and this growing space. They wanted to learn. Most of them want to learn. Most of them want to get outside for a day and have their hands in the soil. They want to, develop a community. I mean, there's such a strong community that...
this still goes on?
At the farm, absolutely. I mean, there are people who have been there since the first year I started that are still there.
How do people get involved with that?
So the Workshare program and the volunteer program, the only difference is that Workshares, there's only 15 spots.
Yeah.
It fills up right away. Those are the people that make the commitment to come every week, May to Thanksgiving, and those are the people that get a full CSA share.
Yeah.
Volunteers, I don't really put a cap on that program. I put a cap on how many people can come per workday.
Yeah.
But there's a page on our website that talks about the programs, and you email me to sign up. But those people are like family to me.
Yeah.
I mean, some of my truly, truly best friends in this world, I did not know until they stepped onto that farm. And I just visited one of them in San Francisco. They moved a few years ago to the Bay Area.
Wow.
I learned so much from them too about, community, about existing in this world, about sharing the things that are important. It's really a wonderful thing. I feel like we give so much to each other.
Yeah, every human being offers their own 2 cents, so to speak, to everyone else.
Yeah.
Where it's just the people that have to be receptive to it. You know what I mean? That's really what it is. But it's cool. So the volunteering is basically people that want to come and kind of share this experience, learn, and just kind of, like you said, get their hands dirty a little bit. Yeah,
and take home some food.
That's awesome. That sounds like such a cool way to do things. I mean, I'm sure you have people that reach out to learn. Like I said, I'm 32 now. I'm trying to learn. My teacher is YouTube. Yeah. But people like to learn hands on. They like to learn locally too. That's cool.
Well, and I think for me, because that's the way I learn best, is I learn best by doing something.
Absolutely.
That's how I taught myself. That's how, that's how I feel like I learn the best, and being able to teach people in that way just feels frankly effortless.
Yeah.
I feel like the farm and the people there do a lot of the work for me as far as creating the community and a space to be. In a lot of ways, I feel like I'm host.
Yeah.
Right? I'm lucky to be host of this space and to this awesome group of people. But it really, it all comes together as this kind of beautiful machine.
Yeah, it really sounds like it. So, I mean, these events, so before these events, like you're growing these things, and I saw you had goats on there. Mm-hmm. Did you always have animals?
I did not. We started out with an apiary, so we had beehives.
Yes.
Still have.
You did that yourself?
No, I worked with actually one of my best friend's dad.
Okay.
And his neighbor wanted to keep bees somewhere and couldn't keep them at their place in Squirrel Hill. So I learned about beekeeping through them. And then over the years, I worked with various people at the farm who taught me about beekeeping.
Fascinating.
Now the the primary beekeeper at the farm is actually one of my work shares, Chris, who's been coming there with his wife for, I think, 3 or 4 years now. And when he started at the farm, he was interested in beekeeping, and him being able to manage the hives at Churchview is kind of how he learned in a really hands-on way. And now
that's awesome.
It's
cool.
Great. I mean, he pretty much single-handedly runs the apiary at the farm and is so passionate about it and so knowledgeable. And, when we have honey harvests, we invite friends and neighbors and other work shares, and just hearing him, talk about all of that.
About it.
I have this just kind of interesting sense of awe and pride, because I know that I am part of his experience and this thing that brings him so much joy and knowledge. Yeah. And I'm also in awe because he's just taken it and run with it. And that's what a lot of people do at the farm.
There's really nothing better than to listen to someone like nerd out at something that they love to do.
Yes.
Because if that's something that's up your alley, like, you don't want to hear about, the entry level questions. You want to hear someone just completely geek out on it, and just, because that's where all the passion is. Exactly. That's why I started this, basically. I wanted to talk to people that were like really in it, really involved with it. So that's cool to hear something like that. Yeah. I saw that you have ducks and chickens.
We have ducks and chickens for egg production. The chickens, and they're all free range. They sleep in the barn at night with the goats, but they're running around all day. The eggs go to work share and volunteer, and of course they go to my executive chef Csilla and some of the guest chefs. Same thing with the produce. The produce grown goes to the work shares and volunteers. Yeah, it goes to Chef Csilla for her events, and then it goes to some of the guest chefs for their events.
What was that like, getting the chickens and the ducks?
It was great, but I have this sense of responsibility that, and also I think maybe the librarian in me will tend to over research before I get them. Yeah, and because it's one doesn't think of a handful of chickens. I think I started out with maybe like 20 chickens. Okay,
right off the jump, you started with 20.
Yeah, I mean, I had it was my grandfather's old hunting trailer actually was our first chicken house. But I took the responsibility of caring for another living creature very, very seriously. And I wanted to make sure that I was, going into it prepared and knowledgeable. So started out with that. I think now typically we have probably usually around 50 hens. Oh, wow. Almost all of our ducks are rescues, though. They're people who find them. They're people who get their children ducklings. Yeah, for please
Easter
don't do that,
or something
people.
Like that.
Yeah, they're found. A park ranger found some and brought them. I
just interviewed a park ranger.
I saw that
Ranger Stevie. She told me, and that's something that I didn't even think about. She said so many rabbits, ducks, chicks, all down at the parks. Yeah. If you're listening out there and you want to get your kid something, don't. That's terrible. Get them a stuffed animal.
Awful. Yes, get them a stuffed animal.
That's terrible.
So the ducks are.
Do you get predators up there?
Well, we do, but all the animals are closed in at night. So our predators, which are mainly coyote and fox, they're only at night, which is not an issue because everyone's closed up in the barn. There's an electric fence around it.
That's good then.
And also my dogs, Fran and Lucy, are so active.
They
Beautiful
are
running
dogs.
around on the Thank you.
My wife was looking at the website. My wife was looking at the website. She was like, "Did you see their dogs?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I saw."
I think the dogs are more popular than I am.
Yeah.
But because they're around all the time, I think their scent is around. And Fran, my oldest dog, she's a 10-year-old Bernese Mountain Dog Border Collie mix. She has learned that when a hawk is there, to run around and bark. And sometimes she'll see it before I am. And so that hawk sees the dog and
warns the
won't land,
chickens.
and she's taught Lucy now to kind of do the same thing.
That's amazing.
So predators are not a huge issue.
That's great.
And the goats were also rescues that a friend who worked at this farm, I think I got the goats in 2014.
Oh, wow. How long does a goat live?
Well, I started out with 5. So a goat will live well into their teens.
Oh, okay.
My goats are, most of them were 1, maybe 2 of them were 2 years old when I got them in 2014. I have lost 2 of them, and It was incredibly painful and heartbreaking. And what I have learned from having goats is that I cannot have an animal that's too big to put in the back of my car and take to the emergency vet.
Oh my goodness.
Because it's very, I mean, and I have, Dr. Barbara Carner from Muddy Creek Animal Clinic is my large animal vet.
Yeah.
I have a different vet for my house pets, of course, but they're fabulous, but it's not, there's
not
no emergency vet
it's
that you
not
can
practical.
take a goat to middle, in the middle of the night. Their care is very expensive, but it's less about that and more about that I'm not that kind of farmer. I'm just too attached.
That's fair. Yeah, my uncle, cat one time ran over by a trailer and broke its leg. This was whenever we were younger. He's a farmer guy up by Acme, PA. So up in Donegal, that cat got put down.
Yeah.
But that's just the way it is. And it's so crazy. And people hear that and they think that it's so harsh and so mean, but that's just a way of life for people up there, kind of.
Yeah, and I think, one of the most merciful things that you can do, which is also the hardest, is to not allow an animal to suffer selfishly because
1,000,000%.
You want that,
you want to prolong that for yourself.
Right. I mean, I've had some of my house cats have lived into 19 and 21 years old, and I have made the very painful decision to put them down when their quality of life was not anymore, and they, became sick. And it's a hard thing to do, but
you always hear better a week early than a week late.
Right. And a good friend of mine, Samantha, who's very involved with cat rescue. I remember when I was struggling with my first cat and that decision, she said, I've never had anyone say I did it too early, but I have heard people say I've done it too late.
Absolutely.
And so house pet or farm animal, animals are...
You get attached.
Exactly.
You get attached to it.
Yes.
You got to. I mean, you can't look at one of them goats and not love it.
Right. And I think, the goats mainly, because I've never bred them. They're not milked. They're, as I refer to them, they're just very expensive pets.
Yeah.
Who are living great lives. But I think they add to the farm. They add to the education. They add to the experience.
Yeah, a little bit of the ambiance up there. You got some goats around, chickens.
Exactly. People can come for events. They feed the goats.
Yeah, that's fantastic. People pay extra for that.
Right. They do. They have a value, and their value is cuteness.
Yeah, that's fair. Now, your whole idea to create these events and kind of make a move from, rather just selling this produce to creating these, big events. What's your thoughts in that? Like, you wanted to utilize what you were growing there and kind of diversify, as you said before?
I wanted to find a way to make the business work.
Yeah.
Really is where that started. And
what was your goal? I mean, was that something that was in your mind originally? Like, how did you think that you were gonna, make money as a farmer, just growing produce?
Oh yeah, I was completely disillusioned. One of my, over the years have taken quite a few graduate student interns from the Chatham Food Studies program. Actually, we have one lovely woman now, Camille, but I have had a lot of, Camille's interested in agritourism. I've had a lot of agricultural interns over the years. And one of the things that I told them that was most important near the end of their season is it's a valuable experience if you learn that this is what you want to do, but it's almost more valuable if you learn that this is what you don't want to do. And you see how hard this is. And I remember I had one intern who said, I have learned that I don't want to have a CSA farm. And I remember saying that, I just wanted to save people some of the time and energy that it took me on that journey to figure out.
Yeah, whether it would be wanting to go into it, running towards it, or run away from it.
And I don't know, honestly, because I feel like owning a farm and owning a restaurant are two things that are very over-romanticized in this world. And maybe that's also just because those are two of the industries I happen to be close to and immersed in. But I do feel like there's a tendency to romanticize them. And I don't know if that was the case with me and thinking that I was going to be able to do this farm and grow food and sell food for a living. I genuinely don't remember, but I do know that it wasn't about it being too hard. It wasn't about it not making enough money. It was about the fact that I recognized that it was not going to work.
Yeah. In what way, though?
Financially.
Oh, yeah.
It was just not, it was not working.
Yeah.
It was impossible. It's very, very expensive to grow food to grow food organically, no matter what your scale is, but especially for me on my scale and with the learning curve that I had.
Yeah, that makes sense then.
It wasn't working. And so that's when we started to diversify with the events. And that was part of the idea. And then I saw that taking off, and I saw the value in the experience of Churchview and the education of Churchview. And I thought that was more fulfilling and more challenging and more valuable than selling this produce. So
Absolutely.
I wanted to find a way to make Churchview what it is today, which is
An experience.
a place to learn, a place to teach, a place to come and eat food.
Yeah.
The events side of the farm pays for Churchview to be a farm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
My accountant tells me all the time, the fact that we are a running farm costs us money.
Yeah.
It costs money to operate the farm. If we were just an event space, it would actually be a lot easier. First of all, I feel that if we were just an event space and not an actual farm, that would be a big part of the lore and the charm of Churchview that would be lost. But what I want to do is grow food.
Yeah.
What I want to do is teach people. That's why I started doing this in the first place. And I actually genuinely do love doing the events, particularly now that I have an incredible staff. My executive chef, Csilla Thackray, and our coordinator, Naomi Keefe. I genuinely don't know how I did this before them, but I did it because I want to grow food. I want to engage people, and I want this space to be a place where people can learn.
And be also a place that could grow.
Exactly.
No pun intended.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
Now, this first event, what's the first event that you had? People come to the farm, and like, how was that compared to, obviously right now it's kind of a well-oiled machine.
Sure.
But the first event, what are the things that you, like, what was your plan? Like, what did you want to do? What were you cooking? And like, what were the things that you faced?
It's hard for me to separate or remember the first event from the first year of events. I definitely know that most of the service staff were friends of mine.
Yeah.
Or work shares, actually.
Yeah.
The chefs were mostly Kate and some other chef friends. Actually, there are chefs, not just Kate, there are some other chefs. I think it's Chris Bonfilli from Bonfire and a few others who have done farm dinners since the first year.
Oh.
And are still doing farm dinners at Churchview. But I know they were for 36 people. I know instead of this big, beautiful covered dining space that basically looks like an outdoor restaurant, it was an actual pergola without a roof.
Wow.
And the only reason I pulled it off is because I had worked catering for a Big Burrito restaurant group in that interim.
Oh, okay.
When I went part-time at the library. So I was farming, doing catering for Big Burrito, and working at the library part-time.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I knew about the service industry was working with Big Burrito. So that's where Kate and these other chefs were very instrumental because I didn't know how to run a dinner.
Yeah. So were you kind of giving the reins to them as far as like the menus, or like how did you kind of develop a menu? Because it looks like it's pretty, what's the right word? Not like high end, but not like, it looks like it's well thought out, and it looks like, what's the right word to describe it? It's not just
the menus are very intentional.
Yeah.
The chefs that are creating them, whether it's Chef Csilla or the guest chefs, there's a lot of time and attention that goes into those menus. And that was the case back then as well. It always starts with, what do we have available for you right now on the farm?
Yeah.
Start there, build your menu.
Yeah, reverse engineer from that.
That's how all the menus start. And I don't to this day, and I certainly never did, have much to do with giving the chefs input on what they were going to do, because I feel like part of the reason why chefs want to go there, part of the reason why they want to work with fresh food and do things like this, it's certainly not for the money.
Yeah,
they're barely breaking even.
They want an opportunity to utilize their skills.
It's a way, right? It's something to do that's outside of their kitchen. It's outside of the confines of their kitchen logistically, creatively. They can have an opportunity to do things that they wouldn't necessarily want to or be able to do in their restaurant. And the cool thing is too that every meal experience at Churchview is, it sounds like hyperbole, but it's a once in a lifetime thing. Those are not, those nights, those meals, those menus are not recreated.
Yeah. So last night I see you had seared pike.
Mm-hmm, that was Chef Csilla last night. Yeah.
Yeah. So she works there.
She's our full-time executive
Full-time chef there. So your menu last night, how do you develop, like, we want to do seared pike, we want to do asparagus. You grew the asparagus?
So Chef Chilla's events, which are every Friday throughout the season, they launch monthly. So July events, June events are sold out. July events are launching in, I think, a week or so. All of her events the menu is, first of all, totally hers.
Yeah.
I am so lucky to have a chef of her caliber. Sometimes I can't truly believe that she works.
I know you wanted to bring her too. I will get her on here too. I would love to have her on too. She looks
She's
very,
an
very
incredible
talented.
person. Yeah, and she has an incredible story too.
Looks very talented, but
Yeah.
this is why I wanted to do separate.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So the Chef Chilla's menus start with her and I either via FaceTime at least once a week or in person. Walking around the farm and talking about what is going to be harvested for these weeks coming up. So right now, asparagus is something that everyone is really excited about. Fresh asparagus is phenomenal. She was like, I want one of these first menus to really highlight the fresh asparagus. We have peas and fava beans coming up, and those are going to be highlighted on one of her future tasting menus that she's doing in the next few weeks. So there's no input that I have except saying, here's what I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
And here's what's
what's available.
going to be fresh. And because this is her third year at the farm too, we've kind of learned each other's rhythms over the winter. We talk together about crop plans and about what we want to grow and what there are certain things that she picks and certain things she says, well, I'm not going to use as much of this crop, but I would love more of this crop.
Yeah.
And she even, picks some varieties for us to try. And there are things on the farm that are grown specifically for her in this separate field behind the outdoor kitchen. But no, the menus are all her and what she's inspired by. I mean, her culinary background influences are Italian, Hungarian, of course, and she has a lot of, I think, French influence in training. Although, don't quote me on that. I might be messing it up. I know French is in there somewhere. I stay away from the actual formulating of the menus.
Well, what's your day-to-day like? What's your day-to-day on the farm?
It changes almost every day, which is part of why I love doing this.
Yeah, it's probably very interesting.
It definitely is not boring. Today we have a big project going on at the farm. We're renovating our perennial herb garden and turning it into raised beds and a space where actually guests can come in. We're going to be doing welcome cocktails in there now. I thought it would be cool for the guests to have one of the growing spaces on the farm that they could actually kind of experience and interact with, because I don't allow guests into the growing fields. So that's going on now. I started at I think 7:45 or 8 a.m. for that project by taking out 60-some pots of perennials that we had just potted up from the herb garden in order for this project to happen. A bunch of work shares came yesterday on Sunday before the dinner to help me dig all those up. I took those out, and then I'm walking around. I'm making field notes. I didn't have work share today. Work share is usually 3 or 4 days a week. So on days when I don't have work share, it's a lot of, honestly, sometimes I spent probably an hour or so sitting at the computer doing emails, but the rest of it is outside. I was working in the flower gardens. I was spraying some horticultural oil on our sour cherry trees. It's something.
Some everyday maintenance.
Yeah, and it's something, it's something different depending on the day, depending on the season. But it's always very busy.
Yeah. Are you a list person?
I am a list person. I have multiple notebooks and apps on my phone, different lists for different things. Yes.
Yeah. Now your process of growing things, I mean, did you say you're all all organic up there?
We are. We're not certified because there was no point in me getting certified. But we all are definitely organic.
I mean, is the want to do that just to be as what's the health conscious as possible?
Definitely environmental.
Environmental, yeah.
Yes.
That's probably the better way to say it.
Always been very important to me. And that's one of the reasons I got into organic growing. Everything from humane treatment of animals, encouraging pollinators and beneficial insects, integrated pest management instead of just spraying controls whenever possible.
How do you do that? Like if you have a pest, what do you do whenever if you're not using pesticides and stuff like that? Do you encounter certain instances where some crops get mites or bugs or something like that?
Oh, absolutely. Because while the goal of organic growing in particular is to have this, it's never about having no weeds. It's never about having no pests. It's about this ecosystem and everything being in balance.
Yeah.
Sometimes that gets out of balance, and that's what organic controls are for. We also do a lot of hand picking. We also do crop rotation. There's a lot of different things that you can do to manage the soil and to manage disease and to manage pests.
Yeah.
But a big part of that is, paying attention to your ecosystem, the particular environment of your farm or your garden. What's working, what's not, making sure that everything starts with healthy soil.
Yeah.
I built the soil for years at the farm by, mulching every single bed every year with compost from my friend's farm in Butler. That's one of the reasons why we have such healthy soil and why things are kind of in balance. But, then there's always sometimes that you do have to turn to organic controls, which are very expensive because they do what they do in a different way. Depending than just spraying a pesticide or something horrific like Roundup.
Yeah, I don't use any Roundup.
Terrible for bees.
Now, for you to obviously yinz are well established now. You're starting to do it. I mean, you do events all the time. What are your goals for the farm?
So, right now, our biggest goal is we went for some grant funding. I think a couple years ago to build a kitchen and an indoor event space. And we ended up not getting that funding, which I think turned out to be for the best because it was a little bit early on for Csilla and I to kind of really envision a project like that. But we're working with some people, some funders, some longtime farm donor customers who are helping us work on getting funding for a smaller kitchen area, because right now we have an outdoor kitchen.
Yeah.
We can't do things in there like a lot of the preserving that we want to do. We need a health department certified space, because the other thing that we do is a lot of the prep that Csilla does is still out of the Black Radish kitchen, Kate Romain's kitchen.
Yeah.
It's a catering kitchen that we share a space, and she's very generous to let us use, but it's not sustainable for us.
Yeah, it would be great if it was just on site.
Yeah, it's 25 minutes away, and Chilla's, going back and forth, and so we need to have something on site, and that's the next goal.
Where does the name come from?
The name of Churchview Farm?
Yeah.
It's on Churchview Avenue.
Oh, I guess.
Very creative there.
Creative name. It's a creative name. But so if you're, if that's like the next step, you have the tasting events, you have the dinner events. What other type of event? Like, what is the tasting event?
Well, we had the tasting is one of 5 or 6 different events that Csilla does every month. The tasting menu is the most elevated. It's the most, I guess, exclusive, you could say. We limit that to 40 people. The ticket price is $215 a person. It's this very elegant 7-course plated meal where the spotlight is always the food, but part of the spotlight for this is the pairings that come from the wine pairings. Chilla's husband, Sean Rosenkrantz, is a incredibly talented sommelier. I think he's about to get his level 4 certification, which is a master somm.
Right.
And he's at the Allegheny Wine Mixer, and he works with Csilla on the pairings for that menu. So it's just an extra special meal experience.
Yeah.
So there's the tasting menu. There's on the complete other end of the spectrum, as far as style and price point, is the Hungarian family meal, which celebrates, obviously, Chilla's Hungarian heritage. I also happen to be half Hungarian. It's family style.
Yeah.
It's a lot more casual. Then we have Italian celebration, which is, the other part of her heritage. A lot of Northern Italian, really incredible Italian food.
Wow.
Those are actually some of my favorites, the Italians, the Italian meals. And then she does a farm dinner. She does a bunch of collaborative dinners with other producers in the area, other kind of beverage people. So there's always something different going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems very busy.
It is, but again, it's only 6 months out of the year, so we have to.
What do you do the other 6?
So much planning.
Yeah, that's
when
how
everything. Yeah,
I'm sure that's where all the madness goes in. Do you have like a dry erase board? You're like, I'm gonna plant these here. I'm gonna do this here, that there.
I have a lot of different tools for crop planning, and one of the great things about having a team that is no longer just me is that it's more collaborative, which also makes it more fun. So like I said, Csilla and I kind of collaborate on that. And even some of the work shares kind of collaborate on that. During the winter, we're still producing in the greenhouse, which is a very small amount and mostly just for kind of personal use and friends and winter volunteers. But it's also just mentally to be able to go into that greenhouse in February and feel the warmth and see things growing and smell that kind of like humid, damp earth smell is, I mean, it's incredibly important and magical for me just to kind of sustain me through the winter because it's a different type of work that we're doing.
Yeah.
It's all, oh my God, so many Zoom meetings and, so many spreadsheets. And this is when we work out the budget and the events calendar for the year.
Yeah.
Because we need to get as much planning done as we can in the off season because, from May through October, it's all execution.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. It sounds like you got a good system worked out. You got some chaos involved in there, but you learn how to manage it, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah. Well,
now, do you feel like are you someone that is how do I want to say it? Are you like a control freak?
yes.
Are you?
There's no hesitation there. I always say that one of the best things, besides over a decade of therapy, that has helped me is farming because you cannot be a control freak when you're working with. Everything is variable. There are so many variables. There are so many things out of your control. So that's been a really great exercise for me. But I am still. I would describe myself, and I think a lot of my staff would as well, as a little
particular.
bit neurotic. Yeah,
you're particular.
I also have had. I think that it's in an appropriate dose, or it has been, because I think that one of the things that actually has served the farm is that I have a lot of guests who've been coming for years that say, it's all of these small touches that we notice and we think these are incredible and it's part of the magic of this place, but. You also have to learn how to and when to step back and let go of that and let somebody else and trust somebody else. And when I, honestly, when I found Csilla and when I found, Naomi, who runs all of the front of house at the farm, I knew that it was so clear that she was so good at it. And it was so clear that she was so invested.
You felt safe to give some of that away.
Yeah, it was the first time that I really felt confident in stepping back.
That's kind of why I always ask people that question that usually whenever I'm talking to people, I'm talking about, the head of whatever project we're talking about, whether it's a restaurant or a farm. But I like to ask people if they're a control freak because it's such an interesting answer because a lot of the time people are like, yeah, I'm nuts kind of. Mm-hmm. But I am that same way, but I always like hearing how people evaluate when and how to allocate some of that control because in the end, it's going to benefit everyone's mental a little bit more rather than you holding all that in and trying to do all that. There's people that, are better at certain things that will offer a better outlook on things.
Well, and I think, I can't imagine a situation where this is not the case, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
You're not going to serve yourself or your business or the people that work with you if you're holding on and clinging to every single element with a death grip.
Absolutely.
You have to give some of that over. And if you're not giving it over, then you're doing something wrong or you don't have the right people.
You never wanted to be the chef up there?
Oh, no, my gosh, no. I love to cook for myself and my friends.
It's a whole different tension behind the rest of it.
It takes, it takes incredible skill and
Yeah.
incredible talent and incredible hard work.
It's a chaotic
to be a
symphony.
chef. It is.
It really is.
And I love watching it, and I'm so impressed by it, and so very glad that I am not in that kitchen.
Yeah, I always, I didn't really have opportunity to work in the food industry growing up. I delivered pizzas, but I filled in at my buddy's restaurant for a few days, and I feel like everyone should have to spend, a weekend in the food service industry, because it's such like we often so much just go somewhere, order food, sit there. Oh, what's taking so long? This is cold, everything like that. But no one really ever understands, how the sausage is made. And it's kind of chaos. It's chaos back there.
It can be, but it also can be this really kind of beautiful performance and orchestra.
Yeah, it is.
When it's being done.
But to those people sitting in them booths just ordering meals, it's chaos back there a little bit. So to be able to see, kind of what all goes into it, I feel like it offers a little bit more. It gives you a chance to respect it a little bit more.
Absolutely, and I think that it offers from the service end and from the production end. I think it also offers some really actually vital insight into humanity.
Yeah, give a little bit more grace.
Right.
That's really what it is. What do you think you do well up there? What do you think that you do well as far as, even as far as things that you grow, what do you think is your go-to? Tomatoes?
The things that I'm most passionate about growing are heirloom tomatoes and heirloom peppers.
Yeah.
Those are the things that get the most attention.
What peppers do you like?
I do love hot peppers. The Workshires will joke that if someone asks me if a pepper is hot, they say my sense of heat is broken and never believe me if I say something's not hot.
You mean you can handle it pretty good?
I can, but I've also been,
around it forever.
Right, for a while. And there are a lot of people who tolerate it a lot better than I do. So I like hot peppers, but I love all across the spectrum with peppers. I love how incredibly different they are.
Yeah.
Visually and as far as their flavor, as far as their
absolutely
utility, as far as, this one is great for frying. This one is great for fresh eating. This one is one that you want to pickle. This one is one that you
do. You do some of that? You can and pickle and everything?
A lot of it, yeah, which I also learned from my mom.
That's great. Yeah, that's what I want to get into next, some pickles.
We one of the things that Csilla and I and Naomi and I also want to do with this kitchen space is be able to do more education as far as actual classes. So cooking classes, preserving classes, things like that. Because some of the most fun things that I've done too at the farm later in the season are I'll just have a group of friends up to the outdoor kitchen and we'll all make a bunch of salsa or a bunch of pickles or a bunch of tomato jam. And it's so fun for me to do. It's so fun for me to teach them how actually not intimidating it is to, can something.
I'm trying to get on that short list.
It's a lot of fun.
It is. It's fun. I love all that stuff, whether it's jam or hot sauce or anything. It's just fun to do.
And also, it's extra amazing to be in the middle of winter when there's no fresh food around and be like, oh, you know what? I have a pantry full of these incredibly delicious things that not only taste so good, but I know what went into them.
Yeah. It's like, I did this. I put these in a drawer. It's cool to think about.
Yeah.
You think there's anything I missed with the farm? I think we did pretty good with it, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go to the ending segment. The ending segment that I do with everyone is an ending segment called Desert Island Questions. That's what everyone's eyes look like. Okay, ending segment is Desert Island Questions. Whenever I give each guest 3 categories to take with them on a desert island and use until they starve to death and die. First category, 3 movies to take. So you get a DVD player, integrated DVD player in one of them little TVs, and you get 3 DVDs for the rest of your existence on a stranded desert island. What would they be?
I'm sucking up 2 with this one, but I would say Kill Bill 1 and 2.
Great movies.
And, it might be The Goonies.
That's a great movie. You can't beat it. It's definitely a good one. Okay, those are good choices. Second category, I'm curious. 3 books to take on a desert island. You have 3 favorites?
That's really hard because I love books so much. would it be a cop-out to do 3 authors?
Sure.
Instead? I would say...
Come up on that mic a little bit, please.
I would say if I can narrow it to authors, I would say A.M. Holmes.
What kind of stuff?
A.M. Holmes, I was turned on to her writing by my college writing professor, who is a good friend of mine and who has been in my workshare program for many years. Her name's Jen. She writes a lot of short stories, just kind of strange novels. She writes some nonfiction too.
Okay.
Short stories, definitely, I think my favorite format. The other thing, honestly, it's a struggle to think about the last time, and this is a shame, I read a book that was not about farming.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got to say David Sedaris, though.
Okay.
I have to say, definitely, because if we're stranded on a desert island,
Yeah.
we need some laughter, for sure.
What about your favorite farm book? If you had to get one for anyone, if that was like, you have a Bible?
So I can tell you Elliot Coleman is the first author that made me think, oh, this is something I can do. He had a book called The New Organic Grower, which I believe was published in the 70s, and another one called The Winter Harvest Handbook, that were the first ones that, like I said, made it seem like it was something that I could not only do, but something that I could teach myself how to do.
Yeah. Okay, those are good. Third category, 3 CDs to take.
I think Beck, Midnight Vultures would be one.
Okay.
Something Old Madonna. And The Roots. I don't know which one I would pick.
It's all right. I'll give you it all.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, that's good. What's your favorite concert you've ever been to?
I don't go to a lot of shows.
Me either.
I think it's funny because a friend and I were just talking about this last night. She's a huge music and show person.
I have friends that go all the time.
A lot of my friends are.
It takes a lot to get me out.
I think part of it for me, not just specific to music, unless it's going out to eat, which I will do at any time. And,
Yeah.
I feel like I expend so much energy being social and interacting with people, whether it's workshare, whether it's at events.
Yeah.
And that, I love it, but it takes a lot of energy. And
Yeah.
so doing a lot of social things, especially large group things.
Are you an introvert? Pretty much?
I'm an interesting combination.
Yeah.
I can only have so much social time.
Yeah.
And then I shut down.
But you're all right being by yourself.
I love being by myself. And actually,
Yeah.
I need a certain amount of time by myself. But I also, I crave being around people and around my friends.
That's good. That's fair.
So it's an interesting.
That's people are like, I always say that I'm an introvert on here, but like, I talk to all these different people, but this is like, this is that outlet. Me going to work is that outlet. But other than that, I like being home. I like being, by myself.
Yeah.
I'm good at it. Okay.
I mean, for me, that's necessary to recharge.
Yeah, you got to recharge the batteries. Okay. Third category is something called the death row meal. So the death row meal is you get an appetizer, a main course, and a dessert. Last meal before you're put to death, what would they be?
The appetizer. The appetizer would be something that involves cheese, for sure.
Yeah.
Actually, for my appetizer, I just want a big cheese plate.
Charcuterie board. That's good stuff.
Sushi would be my main. Any form, any kind.
Okay.
Even Japanese street food.
Yeah.
I love sushi. Love Asian food. Dim sum. Throw that in there too.
Yeah, for sure.
And dessert would be ice cream, even though I can't really eat it anymore.
Yeah.
That's how I would go out.
What flavor?
Something that involves chocolate.
Yeah, I'm a chocolate person. That's good. Okay, second category, or second to last question. If you're getting ready to go on a road trip, you go into a gas station, you get one snack. What is it?
Cheetos.
Cheetos. Regular? Crunchy? Yeah, they're good. It's like addicting. I read online that they said that they've put millions and millions of dollars into the recipe to make it scientifically addictive in your brain to want it.
Oh,
You just feel duped because you could just keep eating them.
They are my secret shame / guilty pleasure. I love Cheetos.
We all have our vices. Yeah. Last question. If you could have a conversation with anyone alive or dead, who would it be and why?
You know, this is one of those things that after I leave, I'm going to be like...
That's what everyone does. Everyone messages me and says, damn it, I wish I should have said this.
Can we redo that? It's like whenever someone suggests a restaurant, you know what I mean? Like I'm immersed in the restaurant industry.
I know.
There are always places I want to go, but then when someone's like, where should we go? I'm like...
Same people or same things kind of rush through your head.
It's funny because I think, I'm not trying to draw this out. I keep like, you know, my mind is like scrolling through and I think there's so much going on in politics currently. Like my brain is just, there's so much like politics in there that I keep thinking of people in politics that I definitely would not be my pick.
Oh, I've had people pick terrible human beings in history to just be like, I want to talk to them about why.
Oh yeah, like just like dissect.
Yeah, like what was behind that? Someone picked Stalin before.
Yeah,
you know, there's weird.
Yeah. You know, I think I'm going to say Yoko Ono.
Okay, why?
Because I feel like she's such a transformational, creative, talented, polarizing, often misunderstood person who it just seems like it would be an incredibly dynamic and fascinating conversation.
That's fair. I don't know much about all of that whole situation, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
Okay. But now I'm gonna ask my guy at work tomorrow because he's a very, very big Beatles guy. Oh. So I'm curious to what he says. Yeah, I'm curious to what he says. But he's also very he sees good on you know, he'll give you both sides of it, what he believes. But you know, it's a fair opinion. But I appreciate you coming over, taking some time to talk to me. I know things are busy. Please take a second and promote all the things, your Instagram, website, where people can get tickets, the whole thing.
So our website is churchviewfarmpgh.com. If you Google Churchview Farm, it comes right up. Our Instagram is Churchview Farm PGH. Our Facebook is Churchview Farm. We launch events every single month. Every single month there is something that's being launched. Throughout the summer, obviously there's a lot more. Throughout the winter, it's a little bit more staggered. Churchview has this reputation for not being, people can't get in, they can't get tickets.
Yeah.
It is sometimes hard to get tickets, but now that we launch every month, there's a lot more opportunities to come to a lot more events.
Yeah, we got to get in there.
Yeah.
Me and my wife are going to make it up there.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Right. Everyone else that's listening, appreciate it as usual. Each and every week back with another great guest doing great things in this city. Thank you for listening. Call you right back.